Sup, YouTube? How's it going, ladies and genitals? I'm sure you guys have really appreciated my very regular upload schedule. In the time that's passed since my last video, a lot of really cool stuff has happened. NASA has all but confirmed biolife signatures on Mars. There also may or may not be alien craft floating in our atmosphere, or maybe a giant spaceship heading towards Earth. We don't know. And if you're anything like me, you likely had one of two questions. Either A, how do I defend myself? Everyone knows that's just a double barrel. Come on, play a video game. First. Second, what kind of music are they going to listen to when they get down here? Come on, you got to show them around. Well, I got the top 10 albums of all music that I listen to that they need to listen to. So if you're an alien from outer space, or an alien from outside Earth, or maybe you're from Earth and you just crawled out under a rock and your ears don't have anything to occupy them, I got 10 things you need to listen to. So now these are in no particular order, and I'm gonna limit myself to one album per band. And I'm definitely going to break that rule later, but you'll see why. So the first on the list for extraterrestrial listening comes from notably horrible peace seller Megadeth. We're going to start with Rust in Peace. The guitar solos are figuratively out of this world. Front to back, this is banger to banger to banger. This is some of the best thrash metal. I don't know if Rust in Peace is my favorite Megadeth album, but I don't think you'd get in an argument with anyone if you said that this album was one of, if not their best album. The album was released in the year 1990 off Capitol Records, and you can clearly see by how scuffed up this case is that it's been through the ringer. I absolutely listened to this raw. My only suggestion is that if you're going to listen to this album, make sure you're not listening to any of the re-recordings or the remasters, because they sound a little funky in my opinion. Just go with the OG Rust in Peace from 1990. Second, in no particular order, you know I cannot mention Megadeth without their older brother, Metallica. And again, it's just like Rust in Peace, where I can't... It might not be my favorite Metallica album, although it's definitely up there. A classic front to back, released in the year 1986, starting off with Battery, ending with Damage Incorporated. This album, I can't skip a single track. This is a phenomenal album, and if you're not from this planet, this is absolutely mandatory listening. If you are from this planet, this is absolutely mandatory listening. Next on the list is going to be Venom's 1981 release, Welcome to Hell. An album that influenced heavy metal more than a lot of metalheads even understand. It pioneered not one, not two, but three genres of heavy metal. Black metal, thrash metal, speed metal. This is an absolutely gnarly album, and if there are any space aliens out there with parents, this album is going to piss them off. Absolute banger of an album. Has an atmosphere that is only chased after in later recordings. It is so fun in the angriest of ways. You need to listen to this album. It's mandatory listen. And next up on the list of mandatory listening that I actually don't own a copy of, I can't believe 2 albums in a row, I was pretty sure I had Judas Priest's 1976 release, Sad Wings of Destiny. If you've never listened to music before, it is a wonderful welcome journey into hard rock, heavy metal. Really blurs the line between rock and roll and heavy metal, where rock and roll has its sound and its objective, and heavy metal not only turns that up to 11, both figuratively, but also the sound itself has an inherent abrasion to it. I mean, I've listened to that album hundreds of times. Obviously not physically, because I don't own a copy of it. Next up on the list for mandatory listening for ETs is going to be Iron Maiden's 1984 release, Power Slave. Now, unlike a lot of the albums that I have brought up before, a lot of people will argue this is their best release. Power Slave isn't my personal favorite album from Iron Maiden. I think that might have to go to Brave New World, but again, this is a really close... We're talking about the cream of the crop here. Peace of Mind, Brave New World. These are all phenomenal albums, but Power Slave, I think, is the best introduction to Iron Maiden. If you don't like Power Slave, you're not going to like Iron Maiden. And if you're breathing, you're going to like Iron Maiden. You should listen to Iron Maiden. I'm preaching to the choir here, to the majority of people watching this video. I need to listen to Power Slave. Yeah, I know, you do, but if you come from outer space, you might not know that offhand. So, if you're coming in on a spaceship, listen to Power Slave. Now, next up on the list is an album that a lot of people in heavy metal circles aren't quite aware of, and that's Riot. Riot's 1988 release, Thundersteel. This is a perfect album, front to back. It's just banger after banger after ballad after banger. It is a perfect album. If I had to cut anything from it, I wouldn't. This is perfect as it is. It starts off with the speed metal track, Thundersteel, the title track of the album, and it doesn't dip in quality at any point. Even the final track, Blood Streets, acts as like an epilogue for the album of like the story and the vibe they're going for. I love this album. I think this is mandatory listening to anyone. So obviously, if you came from outer space and you're visiting my place, you're like, how do I strike up a conversation? Well, you should bring up Thundersteel, because you need to listen to this before you visit planet Earth. Look at the hair. I aspire to have hair like that. Look at that. That's just fucking awesome. So next up on the list, it will not be a surprise to anyone that even loosely knows me. This was a hard one because I had to pick from a bunch of albums with the same singer. Any Ronnie James Dio album from the 80s could fit this list, and I mean that. I don't care if it's Last in Line, Holy Diver, Sacred Heart, Mob Rules. But if you're gonna limit yourself to one Ronnie James Dio album from the 80s, you can't go wrong with Heaven and Hell. You can see that I've listened the hell out of this, because look at that, I've beaten the hell out of this copy. Okay, yeah, this is a phenomenal piece of art. This is a phenomenal piece of music. The human experience, life, can be summed up in the title track. It is my personal opinion, kind of a negative opinion. I just don't think that we're gonna get music better than this. Plug your ears. You don't listen to anything else, including my voice, until you listen to Heaven and Hell, because this album will rock your shit. Front to back. It starts with Neon Nights, and you don't want the album to end. Ronnie James Dio, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Now, on a much softer, lighter, easier tone, something. Maybe if you have grandparents, if you have alien grandparents that have never listened to Earth music, if you have loved ones that don't know what Earth music is like, something that's a little easier to listen to, a little calmer, softer. This is like, you want to play music in an alien nursery, you cannot go wrong with Seasons of the Abyss by Slayer. Released in 1990. You can argue whether or not this is or isn't Slayer's best album. I think everyone that likes Slayer has their different favorite album, but all of them are going to keep on going back to referencing this album being one of, if not their best release. This is arguably peak Slayer. Arguably, I don't know if I think Christ Illusion is heavily underrated. But if you've never listened to Slayer before, I would start with Seasons of the Abyss. If you haven't listened to Slayer, I would heavily suggest starting to, and I would suggest by starting by listening to Seasons of the Abyss. This album will rock your shit. Now, I know I said I was going to attempt to not have more than one of the same band in this list, or else you get a lot of repeats. You get a lot of Metallica albums, you get a lot of Megadeth albums, you get a lot of Iron Maiden albums, you get a lot of Black Sabbath albums. This album was released in 1970, Black Sabbath, 10 years before Heaven and Hell. This is arguably Black Sabbath's most iconic work. It has a different singer. You may have heard of him, Ozzy Osbourne, R.I.P. Some of the best rock and roll, some of the best heavy metal ever made. Very iconic. A lot of the songs that Black Sabbath is known for come from this album. War Pigs, Paranoid, Iron Man, all come from this album. My favorite track of the album is actually called Fairies Wear Boots. I don't think that gets enough airtime. Listen to it. Last on my list of top 10 albums to listen to for visiting space aliens is another album I don't have. And that's going to be from the band Alestorm. It's going to be their 2009 release, Black Sails at Midnight. It is my favorite album of theirs. I've listened to this album cover to cover more times than I'd like to admit. This is a pirate metal album, which, if you're not familiar with the terminology, is heavy metal, but they sound like pirates. It is swashbuckling good fun from the first track all the way to the last. This band is all about how fun it is to be a pirate, and if you came from outer space, you don't know what it's like to be a pirate. I do know what it's like to be a pirate because I've listened to Black Sails at Midnight by Alestorm. It's absolute chaos embodied. And if you're visiting Earth, listen to the album. Listen to all 10 of these albums.
So Luke wanted me to pick an album that I would play for an alien. And I thought about it a little bit, and I thought that I want to teach them a little bit about our human culture. And what is one thing that unites us as humans across continents, across the world? Unfortunately, war. So I picked Sabaton, The Last Stand, and this is about the final battles of many different cultures throughout history. Of song about the Spartans, you have song about the samurais, Shiroyama, you got The Last Stand about the Swiss Guard. But yeah, a lot of variety, and that way if those aliens decide to take us over, they'll know that we're packing heat. So there you go, that's my pick.
So that concludes the top 10 albums I would listen to before visiting planet Earth. So if you're visiting planet Earth, you know, I'm Ike, I'm in peace. But who's buying? So listen to those 10 albums because you're going to get a lot better of an idea of what Earth is like after listening to that, because we're pretty cool down here. We're pretty cool, man. There are some people that aren't cool, but you can tell by how many of the albums on the list they have or haven't listened to. Because if they've listened to all 10 of these albums, they're really cool. But if they don't, like I don't trust politicians that haven't listened to Master of Puppets. I mean, only people I trust wear Iron Maiden shirts. Because I only trust heavy metal hippies.